Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to our webinar From Awareness to Action Empowering Communities on Epilepsy. So, myself, Dr. B. Vijay Raghavan, and I'm an homeopath. Today's session will be having on epilepsy. So, epilepsy is one of the most common neurological conditions affecting millions of people worldwide. So, yet, despite its prevalence, misconceptions and stigmata continue to surround it. So, often leading to fear, exclusion, and inadequate support for those living with the condition. So today we come together to shift the narrative from awareness to meaningful action. So today we have Dr. Sheetal Goyal as a speaker. Dr. Sheetal holds an MBBS, MD in internal medicine, and DM in neurology from NIMANS. Additionally, she has completed fellowships in cognitive neuroscience and movement disorders. Currently, she serves as a consultant neurologist at Work Heart Hospitals, Mumbai, where she leads specialized clinics for movement disorders, cognitive disorders, and Botox treatments. So, Dr. Sheetal has authored numerous research papers and case studies in leading neurology and medical journals, covering topics like Parkinson's disease, cognitive impairment, and neurodegenerative disorders. So, she has been invited as a speaker at national and international conferences, and including an Indian Academy of Neurology, the International Parkinson's and Movement Disorder Society, and Alzheimer's Association International Conference. In addition to a medical practice, she has been practicing and also as a trainer of heartfulness meditation since the year 2017. So we'd like to warmly welcome Dr. Sheetal Goyal. Dr. Sheetal, welcome to the session. Please, over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Vijay, for the kind introduction. So I'll start with it. Yes. So I think I'm sure that my slides are visible to every one of them. So hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Sheetal Goyal. I'm a consultant neurologist from Mumbai Central. I am really thankful and grateful for the Heartfulness community that they gave me this wonderful opportunity on the eve of International Epilepsy Month. So the first question arises that why we need a particular day to celebrate epilepsy. It's very much important. Actually, International Epilepsy Day is celebrated each year on the second Monday of Feb. It's an opportunity through which we raise the awareness of epilepsy. What is it? How it is treated? What we need to bring treatment to all people who need it. It is very much important to celebrate such day so that we can remove stigma which is related with epilepsy in the society. A bit about the history. It was first celebrated in 2015. It was celebrated as a one second. It was celebrated as a global initiative aimed at raising awareness about epilepsy and helping people affected by the condition. Founded by International Epilepsy Bureau and International League Against Epilepsy. The theme that they gave for 2025, that is this year, is My Epilepsy Journey, where they have emphasized the patient who suffered from epilepsy to write about their journey with epilepsy. I want to start my talk naming some few famous personalities to make you all aware that it's not an uncommon disease. All must be knowing about Lee Wang, who was a famous American rapper, Theodore Roosevelt, the 26th president of US, Di Green, who was the British Olympic athlete, Danny Glover, the Academy Award winning actor. All these great personalities has been very vocal about their suffering with epilepsy in their life, as well as Neil Young, the legendary singer and songwriter, Rich Harrison. And if you are not very much interested about the Hollywood and outside India, all must be knowing the Dangal girl, Fatima Sana Sheikh. She has been very much vocal about the epilepsy that she is suffering from and how she has fought with the stigma that is there very much prevalent in Indian society. In 2023, we also had a movie called Bawal, which also spoke very highly about the epilepsy and the struggle that the lady had with epilepsy. So many of my patients who come to my OPD ask, Madam, is epilepsy and seizure the same? One way it is right and one way it is not. Epilepsy is a disorder which we take to a patient only when that patient has recurrent seizure. So it is well understood now that not all seizure is epilepsy. Seizure is a brief temporary disturbance in the electrical activity of the brain. Let me make you understand a bit more. The brain has millions of nerve cells which control the way we think, we move, and we feel. And all this thinking process, moving process is conducted by the electrical signals, which is very much updated. Whenever there is any abnormality in this electrical signal, it is disrupted or interrupted or got hypersynchronized. This leads to a condition which is known as epilepsy, which we also know as fits attack. So many of them don't tell me, Madam, I have seizure or I have epilepsy. They say, Madam, मुझे fits आती है in Hindi. Um, See, in movie, what we see that if the patient is doing like that, means that's a seizure. So very traditionally in Hindi movies, they have shown that this is seizures. But for us as a neurologist, I just want to give a brief idea about the fact that only the movements are not epilepsy. Many of my patients just come with the blinking of the eyes. Some of my patient comes with sensory seizure where they don't do anything. They're standing in front of me and they say, Madam, I have some sensory symptoms in my hand which comes and goes, comes and goes. So they had multiple seizures called sensory seizures. So seizure can present in multiple ways, not only just movement. Young children come to me with the parents and the parents complain that, Madam, my child has stopped going great in academic. They have very bad grade nowadays. And then when I take a detailed history, I come to know that that child is actually suffering from absence seizure, which the parents mistook as being lenient and not taking care of the studies and etc. So seizure has got multiple variety in it, which a neurologist can identify. Coming to causes of epilepsy, mind you, 70% of the epilepsy cases we don't have any reason. We just say we don't know. But among 30% of the cases where we know, majority have a past history of head trauma. They had brain tumor in the past or in the present. They had surgery done in their brain, or they have a strong family history. The mother was suffering, the grandmother was suffering, and now the child is suffering. That is genetic in nature. Many patient comes to me with seizure and brain infection like Japanese encephalitis, malaria in the brain, cerebral malaria, which we term as. And many times in old age, we see seizures due to low sodium. That is a condition where we say hyponatremic seizure. And as I told, majority we don't know and we term them as idiopathic seizures. See, any patient can suffer from seizure, but if we see the percentage, like there are certain special individuals who are more prone to suffer from seizures, and they are people with mental retardation, cerebral palsy, Alzheimer's disease, which is a neurodegenerative condition where patient comes with memory loss in old age with other cognitive impairment. Stroke. If the patient has suffered from stroke, it leaves some scar in the brain and which has a epilepsy tendency in coming future. So we have to start them with anti-epileptics many a time. Autistic childs are more prone to have seizures. See, all are equally like anyone can have seizure, but this group of people have a bit higher risk of having seizures. What happens in seizure? As I told you, that the seizure can be generalized both hand, leg, and like that, or it can be just one hand, or it can be many other. Now, I am I don't want that you all know all the depth of seizures because that's none of your forte. Like you will come to us. But I just want very importantly, I want to discuss that when a person is sieging, you are on the road and you get someone sieging, what are the things you are supposed to do and what are the things you are not supposed to do. The sad part is that whatever are not supposed to do are done majority of the time, and by the time they come to my emergency I realize that they have done all that was not supposed to do. So let us discuss. Number one, whenever you see someone seizing nearby, do not panic. Don't worry. Majority of the seizures stop on their own. So you don't panic. It's not going to be life-threatening for that person. Turn them onto one side and start timing the seizure. Do not restrain the person. You feel like, oh, he sees moving, just catch hold and put a rope on it. No, just don't do anything. Do not restrain. Many of my patients' family member, they start giving them water, liquid, which is a big no. Because during seizing, when you give something to eat or something to drink, it might directly enter the lung and the thing must really get complicated. The patient directly land up to ICU, where we could have easily managed the patient and send him home on the same day. So please do not give them anything to eat or drink during the seizure. Do not crowd the place. Let the person have some air. Avoid placing onion and socks in front of the face, which is very commonly done in India. They will bring one onion and they think that the onion and the dirty socks actually aborted the seizure. But in reality, seizure itself lasts for seconds to minutes. So itself it gets stopped. And if you are worried, please call the ambulance and bring the patient to the hospital in the emergency ward. I don't want to say everything about the seizure, but some basic thing which I feel everyone should know is that there are four major stages of seizures. One is aura. So aura is very important. Some of them get the aura, some of them do not get the aura. But those who get the aura, it is like a blessing to them. How, I will let you know. So whenever a patient has got aura, like child has got aura, so he will start calling the mother. He will say the mother, Mama, I'm going to have seizures. I'm getting that sensation again. So that aura helps a person to get ready with the seizure. So the patient who has multiple seizures, they are so smart. Even when they land up to my OPD, they say that, Madam, I'm just going to have a seizure. Now I got this discomfort. This aura can be of any type. Different colors being seen in front of the eyes, having some epigastric discomfort, getting some sensory symptom in the hand, suddenly becoming fearful. Aura can be anything. If the patient has aura, they become very much aware that now they are going to have a seizure and they lie down in the bed or they lie down on the floor. Then comes the second stage, which is the tonic stage. Then comes the clonic stage. So tonic is tightening, clonic is this kind of movement, and then comes the postictal. So in majority, when the patient lands up to emergency, already the first three stages are over. They come to us with postictal stage, where patient is little drowsy, confused, not responding to your command. But this postictal phase might last from hours to days, and it is nothing to worry about. We are just okay that, okay, now seizure is over and now the patient is on postictal and he will come out very soon. But all seizures are not benign. I want to tell you some points where you have to understand that this patient needs immediate doctor attention. When? When you know that this patient already had diabetes, heart disease, or pregnant, we cannot take it easy. See, in diabetes, majority of the patient gets seizure when their sugar drops or their sugar is very high. So it is hyperglycemic seizure or hypoglycemic, which need to be addressed immediately. Otherwise, there will be cerebral edema, heart disease. Majority they suffer from stroke, and stroke can present with seizures in such case. And in pregnancy, because it's a very delicate time for the lady, so you have to bring the patient to hospital. If the seizure is lasting for more than 5 minutes, as I discussed, normally it lasts for seconds to 1 minute. If you feel that the seizure is continuously lasting for more than 5 minutes, it's an emergency. Rush the patient to the hospital. The person is hurt during the seizure. When the patient, majority patient, what happens is that they are standing, they get the seizure, they fall down, they hit their head, they get head trauma. So we don't know whether there is a bleed inside the head. He had a brain trauma. So we immediately ask the patient to just come fast to the hospital. When the seizure happened inside the water, we are worried that this patient must have aspirated. So this patient has to be immediately brought to the hospital and probably we admit the patient in ICU. If the patient never had a seizure, so this is the first seizure, we have to be very careful. We have to know something new has popped up and we have to find it out fast. If the patient has difficulty in breathing and another seizure came just after the stoppage of the first seizure, means it's a serious matter, please bring such patient to the hospital immediately. Then, now someone has a seizure patient at your home. Your beloved is suffering from epilepsy, and you need to know what are the tips that you can adapt in your life, adapt in that patient's life, so that he don't have recurrence of seizure. So let me discuss some few points. First of all, the most important is take the medication on time. I tell you, if my patient many a time skip tablets even for 1 hour, like every day he used to take at 7, and today he took at 8 or 9 o'clock, he will come to me saying that, Madam, I had a seizure today. You will be understanding, but he didn't skip it. No, it's not. Anti-seizure medicines has to be taken on the fixed time, and it is very much necessary for epilepsy patient. Do not consume alcohol. Practice stress management with the relaxation technique, meditation, yoga to keep yourself calm. Maintain a good sleep schedule. My patient totally improved with my medicines, suddenly turn up in the OPD saying that, Madam, I had a seizure last night. And when I started taking the history, I came to know that he attended his friend's marriage and he didn't sleep. And he get a seizure around 3 a.m. So what I want to say is that if you are sleep deprived, you prone yourself for epilepsy seizures. So please maintain sleep schedule, avoid skipping the meal, avoid flashing light. Protect oneself from head injury and pay attention to fever. Now you will be saying, what is the relation between fever and epilepsy? There is a strong relation. Whenever a person has fever, the metabolism of anti-seizure medicines increases and they start having seizures again. So, any patient with epilepsy, if have fever, please address it immediately on the same day. Don't think that you will wait for 2-3 days and then go to a doctor. Because that patient is an epilepsy patient, please address the fever on the same day. I chose today to specifically talk about some important myth and fact because in my practice I have realized that my patient with epilepsy do not suffer so much with epilepsy seizures that they suffer from society myths. They come to me with so much of psychological distress because of the myths that are prevailing in the society. So definitely today my talk would have been incomplete if I would have not talked about myths and facts. So let us start with some few of them. As I told you, epilepsy is not an uncommon disease. You can see that epilepsy is the fourth most common neurological disorder affecting 65 million people worldwide. So epilepsy is a very common and it is very much existing in the society. Epilepsy is brought by evil spirit is a big myth. Patient come to me after years of fits, and when I say, why didn't you come to me on day one, they say, no, we thought it's a supernatural disturbance and we went to the Jharfuk people like Quakeris, and they did all sort of useless things, and when the seizure didn't stop, they landed up to us. So epilepsy is not brought by evil spirit, it's a purely neurological condition and it need to be treated by a neurologist. Epilepsy is infectious. No, it's a myth. I tell all the mother of normal children who stop their child from becoming friend with a child of epilepsy. I request those mother to please understand that epilepsy is not infectious. It doesn't spread by coming into contact with someone who had seizure. So please let the child with epilepsy or seizures be friend with your kids because it's not going to spread on them. You should force something into the mouth of somebody having a seizure is a myth. Never put any spoon. It is shown even in movies. It's hilarious, but I have seen my patient breaking 4 to 5 teeth and landing up to me just because the family members tried to put the spoon inside. So please do not put anything inside the mouth. Do not give anything to drink. Do not give anything to eat. Epilepsy has no cure. You are epilepsy patient. You are a tagline. You have a tagline that you have epilepsy is again a wrong statement. If you are on proper medication, surgery, and diet, many of the epilepsies are very well managed. And some of our patients, we even stop anti-epileptics after 2 to 3 years when they stop having seizures. So please don't understand that it's not curable. Epilepsy is genetic and you cannot study. Many times I've seen the parents, they stop sending the child to school just because a doctor made a diagnosis of epilepsy. No, I have shown you, even the US president, a person with epilepsy has become US president. So epilepsy is not something where it's a contraindication for education. Please send them to learn. Let them be with us. They will also become doctor like us. And there is no for it. So epilepsy is not always genetic and not always affect the intelligence. And whenever there is an epilepsy, the parents try to hide, saying that they will not be able to get married, they will not be able to have a kid. I tell you, my majority patients are very well, very happily married. They have kids with them. They come to me with the happy faces. So it's not that an epilepsy patient cannot get married and they cannot reproduce. You had seizure, so you cannot join a high demanding jobs. No, you can be a CEO of a very good company also. Seizures doesn't affect intelligence, so you can do whatever you want like a normal individual. So please forget it. Just keep it from your mind that you cannot do it. You can do it. You can live a full normal life with epilepsy, in short. Now, epilepsy can affect a personal lifestyle. So the fact is that no, you can live a very normal life. Before you start doing something new, ask yourself. So yeah, that is very important. You can live a complete normal life, but because you have epilepsy, the only thing you have to be careful about is that epilepsy many times doesn't come with any warning. So don't go in the height place. Don't go to the place where if you get seizures and you fall down, you will hurt yourself. Many times I have seen them going to severe depression, anxiety, and whatnot. Epilepsy, they consider it is a life sentence, and no, it is not. It's like a it's a brain disease like any other disease. It can be treated. Don't consider it like a something has happened very big for your life and you cannot do anything. You can do everything what you want. Children with epilepsy become mentally unfit, as I told. No, they can definitely go for all the academics. They can become doctor. They can become great engineers in their life. It's a mental illness? No. Epilepsy is a neurological illness. Patients are not psychotic here. Epilepsy is a very much neurological illness. So don't worry about it. It's not a mental illness. So these are some of the myths which I want to highlight today, because I understood my audience is a common public and I have a plea for them. It's a request that please take out all this myth from the society and help the epilepsy patient to live a very normal life which they deserve. Coming to the basic investigations, the basic investigation which I order or any neurologist, if the patient has seizures, is EEG and either CT or MRI. That's it. But again, I tell you, majority of the patient comes with normal EEG and MRI and still they are having seizures. So just because your EEG is normal, your MRI is normal, it doesn't declare that you do not have epilepsy. It's a clinical diagnosis. Come with the video to a neurologist and let us make a diagnosis whether it's a seizure or it's not a seizure. So these are the questions that I got after discussing with Dr. Vijay. So he had a question that we have so many anti-epileptics, doctor, and how do you decide? And I completely agree with him. We have so many anti-epileptics in the society, which is very much present, and we use it in our day-to-day practice. Like you can see some of the name written here, like phenobarbital, phenytoin, ethosuximide, topiramate, and whatnot. I will just give you a brief account how we neurologists decide on which medicine to be given when. These are the type of seizures. So normally we first try to find out what kind of seizure my patient is suffering from, focal or generalized or tonic-clonic or absence or myoclonic. I don't want you all to go in detail, but I just say that these are the guidelines which help us to understand which anti-epileptic to be chosen for which patient. So we have first line medicines, we have second line medicines, and there are so many epilepsy syndromes. Epilepsy we see even at 1 year of age, 1 month of age. So they come with some epilepsy syndrome. So we all have our guidelines to which anti-epileptic to be chosen for which condition. There are some broad and narrow spectrum anti-seizure medicines. We have got enzyme inducing, non-enzyme inducing, which we buy hard on our own and we just keep it inside. And whenever a patient comes, we take the entire detailed history and we decide which medicine to be given to which patient. There are different mechanism of action which we have to know as a neurologist. We give them a combination. So there are certain combinations which are allowed, two anti-epileptic combination. There are two anti-epileptic combination which is not allowed. So we have to be very well versed with which combination we can give to a person. There is multiple supraadditive effects on two combinations. So we very smartly choose those two anti-epileptic drugs. We even sometimes go for triple combination when two antiepileptics is not enough to manage with the fits of my patient. And apart from this, we also take care of what extra my patient is suffering from. Suppose my patient is suffering from cognitive disorder, memory loss, very old age. I will try to choose lacosamide, lamotrigine type of drug and not other drug because they do not affect my patient's memory further. Majority of the anti-seizure medicines have a side effect of cognitive impairment, but lacosamide and all are safe. So I choose lacosamide over other medicines. Similarly, if my patient comes with lung disease, I have a particular type of anti-epileptics to be chosen, like valproic acid, levetiracetam, etc. If they come with thyroid disorder, then I choose drugs like clobazam, clonazepam, ethosuximide, lacosamide. So that's why whenever you will go to a doctor, you will see those doctor always keep asking you, do you have thyroid? Do you have BP? Do you have diabetes? So this is all because we have to be very meticulous when we choose an anti-epileptic drug for you all. If they are obese, majority of the anti-seizure medicines are known to increase the weight. So if I know my patient is 100 kg plus, so I prefer choosing topiramate and zonisamide over other drugs which are known to cause weight gain. If the patient has infection, the choice is different. If the patient is above 60, my choice is different. If the patient has psychiatry disorder, my choice is different. I'll give you a very beautiful example. If my patient has psychiatry, mood disorder, along with seizures, I prefer going for valproic acid. Why? Because valproic acid is also the treatment of choice for bipolar disorder. So from one medicine, I heal two things for my patient. One bipolar and the other seizure. So this way we choose. We try to find out what is the associated problem with the patient and we accordingly choose the anti-epileptic among so many of the anti-epileptics we have with us. When they have liver disease, we choose particular set of the anti-epileptic. If they have renal disease, different. If they are on dialysis, we choose different. So these all comes with these all are basically done by we neurologists whenever you land up to our OPD. In again, I won't go again hyponatremia. This way, we just keep choosing and choosing. We just try to give the best of the anti-epileptic that will best suit to my patient with HIV, with tumor, with cardiovascular disease, with so there are these are all our learning. If a patient has come with stroke, what I'm supposed to choose. If the patient has come with pregnancy, you know, whenever young female come to us, we always ask them last menstrual date period. Why? Because we don't want that because there are certain anti-epileptics which are big no during pregnancy. Sometimes females doesn't know they are pregnant, they have conceived. So we always ask them, when is your last LMP? Are you expecting? Are you planning? If yes, we try to choose levetiracetam and lamotrigine over any other antiepileptics so that we don't cause any teratogenic effect to the coming child. So now I talked about tablets. So many of my patients say that, Madam, tablets are okay, but do you have any diet for us that we can use and we can control the seizures? So we have certain proven diet like ketogenic diet, modified Atkins diet, low glycemic index treatment, and median chain triglyceride oil to be added in the diet, and they are very well proven to decrease seizure. But there is a note out of it. You have to be careful that ketogenic diet is contraindicated in some of the seizure conditions. So never start ketogenic diet or whatever diet I've explained on your own. Please consult a dietitian, consult a neurologist before going for this kind of diet. There it is contraindicated in pyruvate carboxylase deficiency, porphyria. There are different neurological conditions who can also present with seizures. And ketogenic diet normally we do not recommend in adults with epilepsy. So diet for children, yes, you can think about it. And for adult, no, they are not very much recommended for them. Okay, you went for diet, you went for tablets, patient is still not getting free of seizures. You are just very upset. There is another way out in which we help our patient, and that's surgery. We don't go for surgery for every epilepsy patient. I also perform surgery in my hospital. I tell you, there are certain strict guidelines when we feel that patient is not able to get control on two anti-epileptics. Seizures are very disabling for the patient. There is an MRI where there is a big mass lesion which is very much evident and seizure is coming from that focus. Patient is psychologically prepared for surgery, quite young, not very high risk of surgical complication. We definitely go for surgery on those patients because their life is anyways at a stock after having so much of epilepsy, and plus there is side effect. As we keep increasing anti-epileptic, the side effects get piled up. So we at last we say that, see, if you are not able to get control with good amount of two anti-epileptics, slowly and gradually we counsel them and say them that gradually we might have to take you for surgery and we don't have any other option. And I tell you, majority of my patient who has undergone surgery has done really great in and they have even joined duty. They were completely they were completely at home. They were fearful to get out of the house that they will get seizures, and after surgery they are living a very normal life. So surgery is also very much option in a patient with epilepsy when tablet, diet, all these are not working great for those patients. There are multiple type of epilepsy surgery. It's not only one. It depends on what kind of lesion you have in your brain. We do focal resection, we do extra and temporal resection, lesionectomy. These are all scientific terms. I don't think you need it, but I'm just naming them. Multiple subpial resection, which is very much that we do. Functional hemispherectomy, hemispherotomy, corpus callosotomy. All these have different indications. When this seizure, then we'll do this. When this, then this. So this way we choose which surgery is best for my patient when tablets and diet is not working. Um, because today I am in the platform of heartfulness, of which I am also a part of. I was very much interested when I was preparing those slides that whether meditation can be advocated by me, but unfortunate, it's very controversial. See, we tell anything happens, we say do meditation, do meditation. But when studies were conducted on epilepsy patient and they were asked to do meditation, the results were not very impressive. It was found that meditation can also trigger seizures, but I tell you, it is not conclusive. We don't have enough literature to completely say no to those people with epilepsy. All we can say is that being from as our heartfulness is also so much related to research, we should think of getting a research done on those patients that we have with epilepsy in our institute and see how meditation can bring them a change, because till date it is been told that meditation can be a potential trigger for epilepsy. Coming finally, if you want to take something from my today's talk, maintain your diet and nutrition, be more emotionally strong, be independent. You are independent, you are normal like any other individual. Continue your physical activity, complete your education. Don't stop going to school or college just because you have seizure. Maintain your social relationship, maintain sleep hygiene, go to sleep early, do your stress management by yoga, relaxation technique. And coming to the take home message, I have one important message that epilepsy patient can live as normal life as we do. So it's our duty also, who are not suffering from epilepsy, that we make a comfortable and happy place for them so that they can live with us without any stigma in coming future. Thank you.